All right, we'll get to it. Bell ringer. Bell ringer. So does Henninger run through the door and bell ringer, bell ringer? Is that how he does it?
No, he's already waiting.
Oh, he's waiting there for you. Okay. All right, so what is phrenology? How did the effects of phrenology help benefit the study of psychology? There you go. I just keep picturing him. You ever watch Seinfeld, the show?
Yeah.
Like Kramer coming in the door, like stumbling. Bell. Oh, what a good show. Oh, man. What would I do for a show like that again? So after this one, I will grade them. I think we should have 3, right? For this week? Okay, good. So I'll be 3 points coming at you. And remember, some of these bell ringers might be a short answer question on a test. Make sure you look over them every now and then. I think today's flying by. What do you guys think? No, Booker, you don't think so? Well, you had me for 2 periods in a row, so you're probably bored. You're like, oh, this guy up here. All right, give you one more minute to finish up here. All right, so what is phrenology? How do the effects of phrenology help benefit the study of psychology? So phrenology, what is it? What is it? It's a type of what that we went over yesterday. What is that term called? I think it's one of your vocab terms as well. It's a what? That doesn't really go by that scientific method. What is it? What is it? Sarah?
Pseudopsychology.
Yeah, good job. Pseudoscience, pseudopsychology. Good job. And what is that?
It's like fake psychology, scientific method or scientific backing.
Okay. Yeah, good. And they build off emotion, right? Build off of intuition. Okay, good. So are you bashing some palm readers? Oh my gosh. You better look out. Yeah, good job. So it kind of builds on emotions. It really doesn't go by that scientific method. So real quick, let's go over that scientific method. Where do we start off with? What do we need to do? What's number 1 on that list? Should I write it up? I guess I will. What's number 1, Campbell?
Observation.
Yeah, you make an observation. Good job. You make that observation. And what goal does that fall under? Uh-oh. Going back 2 days now.
Describe.
Description. Yep. Yep, good. Description. Okay, so I'll just put like goal number 1 there. So you make an observation. Good. Then where do you go? Hannah, go ahead.
Ask the question.
You ask a question. Good. You ask a question. And that kind of falls under that, which is going to be the next part. What was the next goal? Go ahead. Yeah, hypothesis. You formulate a hypothesis, and that falls under what? What was that second goal? Okay, good. Yeah, explanation. Good. And then we fall to what? So you formulate your hypothesis. You're doing what then? Hooker. What's that? Okay, yeah. So you make a prediction of what might happen here first, but then, yeah, you go to a experiment. Good. Okay, and then we'll just say predict or explanation. Yeah. So you go through the experiment, and what then do you go to? What then do you go to? Sarah? You analyze your results. Good. And before you publish it, what do you have to do? You got to replicate it. Good. So I'll just kind of put in parentheses here, you got to replicate it. Because you never know what could happen. What could happen? What could be involved within that study that could throw off your results?
There could be some specific factors that should be there that just like coincidental there.
Yeah.
Throw off results.
Good job. We'll talk about in the next chapter, confounding variables, right? Could throw off your results depending what you do. Good. And then if your hypothesis is wrong, right? If you go through the experiment, it doesn't work out, where do you go? Where do you go? Campbell? You go back up to the top, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta go back up. Oh, I lost the chalk there. And you gotta formulate a new hypothesis to make sure it runs through. And then you gotta replicate it again. It's almost like a never-ending study. That's why with psychology, it's so hard with funding, right? Which we'll talk about more today. And with experiments, how do you fund it? How do you afford to run through this experiment? And timing, right? It's very time expensive, right? Good. All right, and then if it's good, right? If it runs through, you replicate the study, you go through the experiment again. You can do what? You can do what? Hannah?
Report results.
Yeah, report results. Good job. Sorry, I left off here with the goals. What's next here? What's next? What's number 3, Z? Prediction, good. And that kind of falls right in here when you make a prediction with your formulating your hypothesis. That falls right after explanation. Good. And then finally, what is the last one? The last goal. Booker? Yeah, influence. Good. Okay, influence is how we apply what we just went through to try to help benefit a behavior or help, let's say, with some sort of issue or problem. Good. Is there any questions on that, guys? We good? So make sure you have those 4 goals and how you can sort it through with the scientific method. Erase it. You need a picture. You good? I think we should be all right. Good. Good work here. All right, so phrenology. Back to the bell ringer. My bad. Got off track a little there. What is phrenology? What is it? What is it? Sarah?
Like studying thoughts in someone's head, personality.
Yeah, good job. So 1800s, this was a big thing. All right, we're going to try to feel the top of people's heads. If we feel bumps or grooves, we're going to try to predict characteristics, maybe future behaviors, personality. There's a lot of things that these phrenologists kind of came up with out of their head. But with the effect, we all know, you can't really apply that to a study and say, hey, this actually works, that this is actually something that is beneficial for people and approved through science. That's not, come on, that's not real, that's not true. That's a pseudoscience, right? Pseudopsychology. But what were some of the effects that help benefit from phrenology into psychology? What benefits did we see? Z, go ahead.
And a lot of people want to study the brain.
Yeah, study the mind, right? Study the mind. For so long, people thought that your spirit, right? Your, I guess, the way you have personality, behavior came from an inner, I guess you could say, light within your body. Okay, no one really accepted the mind of anything. No one really thought the brain could really actually perform these functions of memory, sensation, movements, memory, you name it. Right? There's a lot of different things, and reasoning. Right? There's a lot of other things that I can talk about with functions of the brain, but at that time, they just thought it was a intuition, like a movement in spirit within your body. And no one really accepted the mind at performing these tasks. Good. Is there any questions on that, guys? We all good? All right, I'll give you a couple minutes to work on vocab. Again, I know it kind of sucks doing that for homework, so I'll give you, how about 3 to 4 minutes? Now let's make it 5. It's Friday. What do you think, Campbell? Yeah, that works. That works. Heard it might snow Tuesday. What do you guys think? Snow day, maybe? I guess it's called a virtual day now. Hi, Sarah. Oh, man. Oh, man. All right, give you 3 more minutes. Finish up here. 2 more minutes. I get working on this activity then after I'm done with this presentation. Alrighty, so let's get after it here. Let's get after it. So we just talked about phrenology, pseudopsychology, and kind of the funny stories with phrenology and how it's really not accepted, right, as this actual science, as this actual psychology, because it doesn't follow that scientific method. It can't be proven to be actually, um, I guess you could say, viable or useful. So we talked about facilitated communication yesterday as well. I remember this in elementary school being used, and yeah, this helps out. I mean, maybe with cognitively for these students who have disabilities that can't communicate anymore. After a while, you think eventually there would be a cognitive attachment, right? A pathway, a practice after some time where maybe this person who is disabled can remember the spaces on, let's say, this map here to pick out what they're trying to say, what they're trying to communicate with, right? But again, really not, um, really not, I guess you could say, viable and useful. It's not like Stephen Hawkins, right? You guys know who Stephen Hawkins is? How does he communicate? Do you know?
Yeah, doesn't he type it and it just says it out loud?
Um, I think eventually it got to that, or well, at first it was like that, but from what I read, it was just like in his glasses they had an infrared beam coming down to his cheeks, and whatever cheek movement that he had, it was kind of detailing what words he was actually trying to say, which is pretty amazing. It's like, how does that even work? You know, it's Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was hard, I guess, eventually with his ailment, his problem. He couldn't even move his fingers then. It was to that point, but his cheeks he could still kind of move. And I guess the infrared rays would pick up on that, and it was only useful for like 15 words every so minute or every other minute or something like that. So a lot of his responses and talks were kind of pre-recorded already. So like he would go through it and then like he would go out in front of people in front of his lecture hall and it would just kind of go through it. It's pretty neat. It's pretty neat. So I guess that was a better way, but let's face it, how expensive does that have to be? You know what I mean? That has to be some time and money, especially to try to achieve that. And not all school districts can do that. All right, so moving on. 3 ways of performing psychology. Number 1, make sure you remember it, experimental psychologists. So basic research in psychology, running through these experiments, right? We talked about that scientific method, and the way to have a proven theory to try to prove your hypothesis to be um, have validity, right, is experimental psychology. What was one of the issues with this, though? What's one issue with becoming an experimental psychologist? What do you think? To run these experiments and conduct them. What do you think? It's one issue, I guess you could say. It's not like everybody can just run their experiments and conduct these experiments. Sarah, what do you think?
Financial.
Yeah, yeah. Good work. Funding, right? Funding. That's one of the biggest things. And that's why you see a lot of these experimental psychologists working at colleges, universities, because they have the ability to afford, whatever it means to purchase these items to help conduct the research and experiment, right? Also, you can see it at medical fields, right? Big hospitals, things like that. But experimental psychologists, one of the main things is funding. Okay, how do we afford these experiments to conduct these experiments? That's why you see a lot of these professions being useful in medical facilities, universities, colleges. Okay, and on the part time, they teach, right? So that kind of falls into the next one. Teachers of psychology. So as they're conducting these experiments, okay, they also have the push to teach, educate. And that's kind of their agreement with these universities and colleges that their studies to be proven, to be stated, to be published, okay, by these universities for the funding. They have to teach it. They have to express their views, their new research to the youth, okay, people that go to their colleges or universities. Obviously, it's been expanded a little bit more for basic psychology and community colleges, okay, Even high schools, right? Yeah. I know I never had psychology in high school. I remember when I was told to teach this class when I got hired here. I was like, what? Psychology? I wanted to be a history teacher. This is unbelievable. But I'm starting to like it more and more. At first, I had no idea. I was like, what? What is psychology even about? But after a while, taking some courses, get to know a little bit more. All right, so teacher psychology, that kind of falls under experimental psychology. Like I said, universities, colleges, medical profession, they facilities, they have them teach them and express their knowledge on certain understandings and experimentation, right? And their beliefs in psychology and theories. And the last one, applied psychology. Applied psychology. So after this experimentation, after you know several years and obviously time studying the basics, experiments, going through the funding and experimentation, next thing is applying it to the field. How do we use this research? How do we use this information we gathered from these experiments and try to benefit people in society? Okay, it could be many professions. It could be with marketing. It could be with advertisement to help business grow, to help people feel more comfortable in their environment at work, right? Working with the safety department, right, to help achieve better success with their workers. It could be with sports. How do we see the maximum, I guess you could say, mental processes for these athletes to perform out in the field? What are the best ways of nutrition through training? Okay, there's a lot of different factors that come through it with, especially now with a growing field with psychology, with sports. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of different aspects where psychology is being used, which I'll give you an activity maybe next week where you can do some research and some career paths in psychology. Military psychology, that's a big one nowadays, especially with coping with some of the things that people face out in the battlefield. How to maybe get back to, like, let's say normal life. I don't want to call it normal life, but after you're done in the military, some of the service that you do over years and come back, how do you get back into the routine of going to a 9 to 5 job? How to get back into play with ideas of scheduling, things like that. So a lot of these careers are up and coming. You see a lot more positions being added that build on psychology and how to help people get back into things and get back into the regular, normal, scheduled lifestyle, especially for sports athletes. That's one of the biggest things. Right? 'Cause let's face it, they just play a game their whole life, right? Making crazy amount of money. And all of a sudden, you got to get back to working a 9 to 5 job. And you're not getting paid this crazy amount of money to work out and train and things like that. You got to get back into going to work and scheduling time and being careful with your money and investing your money. It's pretty unique, pretty cool stuff. All right, real quick, history of psych. I'm going to have you guys do some research and read a little bit in your book of some of the history of psychology. But it kind of stems back to Greek Roman culture. That's where the new Western views of psychology emerged from. All right. There obviously have been forms of psychology and study and ideas of the mind and the body through native cultures, African cultures, Asian. But for the most part, we familiarize ourselves with Greek Roman culture, this westernized thinking. And that's one of the critiques with psychology that we learn today. It's like, how can we maybe apply this to adhere to or accept some of these versions of these approaches to psychology that have been utilized and accepted in many different cultures all throughout the world. Okay, we're kind of just scheduled and we're kind of just only understanding the westernized version of psychology and understanding and perspectives, approaches to psych from westernized thinking. Especially like European countries, right? This idea of like I mentioned, westernized views. But especially in China, African cultures, Native American cultures, this belief of spiritual learning, this conscious, unconscious battle, right? And many times through dreaming, how can we maybe focus on helping behaviors and personalities, even uses of drugs, some things like that to try to help ailments and try to help aid people through hard times. All right, and one of the biggest perspectives, which you'll read about here soon, is Rene de Cortez, right? So he's one of the most famous westernized thinkers of psychology when bringing this approach to helping people understand that this is an actual science, that this social science is useful, okay? And his biggest benefit towards psychology was dualism. Make sure you remember that, dualism. I'll write it on the board, quick. Dualism. What do you think dualism is? What does that mean? What does that mean? What do we think? So he's right around the Renaissance period, right? This rebirth, this new ideas, these accepted views on life, sciences, and try to break free from that just church controlling all aspects of thinking and beliefs and approaches to life. What do you think dualism means? What do you think that means? So if it's dual, that means what? Two, right? Probably two, right? So we're thinking of, in this case, the mind and the body. Make sure you write that down. Dualism, the mind and the body. So again, phrenology, we talked about it. Yeah, it was ridiculous, the way they came up with benefits and personalities, characteristic traits. But it opened many psychologists to think, yeah, you know what? The mind actually does play a role in why people behave the way they do, what kind of personalities they do, how they react to certain stimulus and certain changes throughout their life, their developmental stages. Okay, it's just not found in the body, but also the body plays a huge role when reacting to certain stimulus, right? Okay, let's say if we put our hand on a hot stove, okay, obviously our nervous system is going to send that information to our brain to tell us, yo, remove your hand. What are you doing? Are you stupid or something? So yeah, you got your mind and your body work together. That's the main thing that de Cortez brought to the table, which became more of an accepted science for psychology. You guys good with that? All right, cool. So yeah, the findings of psychology mostly in deep-rooted in Roman, Greek not mythology, Greek times and culture, this westernized views and thinking. And Monday we'll talk about structuralism and functionalism, okay, how that is going to bring about more approaches and more perspectives in psychology. And with observable events, maybe conducting like a controlled study, right? So we're going to get that more on Monday. All right, real quick, I just posted it. Well, I should have posted while I was going through the lesson. Oh, that's a weird screen. I never saw that before. What the heck? That doesn't make any sense. Half my screen's cut out. Hopefully it works. Yeah. Oh, okay. Whew. Close one there. All right, so origins of psych. Here it is. So you'll find the information that helps run. Oh, the Cortez is on there. Here we go. So there's some more important figures, especially through the Renaissance period, that talks about some of the growth of psychology and the origins of it. So on page 15, you'll find that information. Read through it. There's only a short section. It's called Origins of Psych. Read through that and kind of write some details, information, notes on these different parts. And then number 4, you're going to have to do a little bit of research, okay? So find some perspectives, approaches, origins to psych that were groundbreaking that you can include on a timeline. So I'd like you to draw a timeline here at the bottom and go through some events that were very, very important and groundbreaking for psychology to be useful as a social science and be acceptable as a social science. You guys good? Know what we're doing? All right, cool. Gail working on it. If you have some time, I'll go over it. It's going to be cutting it close, though. So we might have to save it till Monday. Does that work? But I'd like for you to work on it now, okay? So don't just save it for homework, because that's procrastination there, brother. What's up, Hannah?
Are you checking bell ringers?
Ooh, yes, I do need to check those. Again, so those of you at home, please turn those in to today's announcement. Okay, Origins of Psych, you'll just complete this and just attach your bell ringers to this announcement here so I can check those. For those of you